The conference hall on Nexus Station was huge. It could hold 10,000 beings from different worlds. Today it was completely full. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy had come to see what the humans would show them. Commander Jake Morrison walked slowly to the speaking platform. His blue uniform was clean and pressed. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Behind him, a massive screen showed the image of Earth's newest warship. The ship was called the Frontier. It looked impressive with its white and gray hull shining under the station lights. Jake felt nervous, but he did not show it. He had practiced this speech 100 times. Around him sat the aliens. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some looked like walking plants. Some were made of something that looked like living crystal. All of them had come to judge humanity. The humans were new here. They had only invented faster-than-light travel 100 years ago. That was nothing compared to most species in this room. The Vrin Collective had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. The Keller Federation was almost as old. Even the smallest species here had been in space longer than humans had been building cities. Jake reached the podium and pressed a button. The hologram changed to show different angles of the frontier. He took a breath and began to speak. "Thank you all for coming today. I am Commander Jake Morrison from Earth. We are here to show you our contribution to keeping the galaxy safe." His voice was translated instantly into 1,000 different languages. Some species heard it as clicks. Others heard songs. Some heard vibrations they felt through their bodies. The technology was amazing, but Jake tried not to think about it. The Frontier is our most advanced warship. It took us 20 years to design and build. It has shields that can survive impacts from small asteroids. Its engines can reach faster than light speeds in just 3 minutes. It carries enough supplies for a crew of 200 for 6 months. On the screen behind him, the ship rotated slowly. The aliens watched with mild interest. Some were taking notes, others looked bored. A few were clearly not paying attention at all. Admiral Lisa Hayes sat in the area reserved for Earth's delegation. She was 60 years old with gray hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. Her face showed no emotion, but inside she felt excited. These aliens had no idea what they were really looking at. They thought they understood human technology. They were wrong. Jake continued his presentation. He talked about the plasma batteries mounted on the ship's outer hull. He explained the shield generators and their power output. He showed diagrams of the life support systems and the crew quarters. Everything he said was true. He just did not mention the most important part. Deep inside the Frontier, hidden behind layers of armor and security, was something the galaxy had never seen before. It had no official name in the documents Jake was showing. The engineers who built it called it the Railgun. It was humanity's secret. It was humanity's answer to a galaxy that did not take them seriously. In the front row, Ambassador Claire Hudson from the Vrin Collective leaned toward her assistant. Claire looked almost human except for her 4 eyes and the blue tint to her skin. She spoke in her own language, a series of clicks and whistles that sounded like music. "These humans are so eager to please," she said. "Look at how proud they are of their little ship. It is cute, really, like watching children show off a drawing." Her assistant, a younger Vrin named Tella, nodded. "Should we tell them that our scout ships have better shields than their flagship?" Claire smiled. It was not a kind smile. "No, let them have their moment. They will learn their place soon enough. The galaxy has room for many species. Even primitive ones can serve useful purposes." The Vrin had not always been this arrogant. Long ago they had been explorers and scientists. But 10,000 years of being the strongest military power in their region had changed them. They had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. They had forgotten that new ideas could come from unexpected places. Jake finished explaining the ship's defensive systems and moved on to its weapons. The Frontier carries 12 plasma cannons. Each one can fire a burst every 3 seconds. The plasma is contained in magnetic bottles and travels at approximately 1/10 the speed of light. Several aliens in the audience made notes. Plasma weapons were old technology. Every species had them. The details Jake was giving were perfectly standard. There was nothing special or surprising about any of it. The ship also has torpedo tubes for long-range attacks. Each torpedo has its own small engine and can track targets up to 50,000 kilometers away. We can carry 40 torpedoes in our magazine. More note-taking, more bored expressions, One ambassador from a species that looked like a giant beetle was actually sleeping. His translator device had turned itself off to save power. What none of them knew was that every weapon Jake described was real but secondary. The plasma cannons worked exactly as he said, so did the torpedoes, but they were not the reason the frontier existed. They were camouflage. They were the magician's left hand moving to distract from what the right hand was doing. Admiral Hayes checked her communication device. A message had just arrived from Earth. It was encoded, but she knew what it said. The frontier had been given clearance to deploy to the disputed zone. The test was approved. Soon the galaxy would see what humans could really do. She looked around the conference hall. These species had ruled space for so long that they thought they knew everything. They had categories for every type of weapon and shield. They had tactics refined over thousands of years of warfare. They fought their battles in ways that made sense to them. Humans fought differently. Humans had spent their entire history finding new ways to kill each other. They had invented weapons that other species never dreamed of because those species had not needed to. When you could blow up a planet with energy weapons, why would you think about throwing rocks? But humans had thought about it, and they had made throwing rocks into something terrifying. Jake concluded his presentation with images of the Frontier's crew. He showed their training programs and their dedication to peace. He talked about Earth's desire to be a good member of the Galactic community. He said all the right things. The applause when he finished was polite but not enthusiastic. The aliens had seen what they expected to see. Another new species with adequate technology, trying to catch up to civilizations that had millennia of advancement. It was a familiar story. It happened every few centuries when a new species discovered faster than light travel. As the delegates began to leave for the reception area, conversations started in 100 languages. Most were discussing trade agreements or diplomatic matters. Almost no one was talking about the frontier. It was already forgotten. Claire Hudson spoke with the ambassador from the Keller Federation. What did you think of the human presentation? The Keller ambassador was a tall reptilian creature named Krell. He shrugged, which looked strange on his body. They are enthusiastic. Give them a few centuries and they might build something worth noticing. For now they are children playing with toys. Should we invite them to participate in the Border Patrol program? Claire asked. Why not? They can handle the easy routes. It will make them feel important, and it will free our real warships for actual threats. They both laughed. Around them, other ambassadors were having similar conversations. The humans were being sized up and found wanting, not weak enough to ignore, not strong enough to respect, just adequate enough to be useful. Admiral Hayes stood and walked toward the exit. She passed groups of aliens who did not even glance at her. She was just another human. Just another representative of a minor species that would probably never amount to much in galactic politics. She smiled to herself. Let them think that. Let them believe humans were simple and predictable. In 3 weeks, the frontier would reach the disputed zone. In 3 weeks, everything would change. Commander Jake Morrison joined her in the corridor outside the conference hall. How did I do? He asked quietly. Perfect, Hayes replied. You gave them exactly what they expected. Now let us show them what they never saw coming. Behind them, the conference hall slowly emptied. The greatest military minds in the galaxy were all thinking about other things. None of them realized they had just witnessed the beginning of a new era. None of them understood that the balance of power they had known for thousands of years was about to shatter. The frontier sat in its docking bay 3 levels below. Its crew was preparing for departure. Chief Engineer Danny Porter was running final checks on the railgun. Everything was ready. Soon the galaxy would hear a sound it had never heard before. Soon every empire would learn that humanity had brought something new to the stars. Something dangerous. Something unstoppable. Something that would make them all freeze in terror. The conference hall on Nexus Station was massive. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled every seat. The air hummed with the sound of translation devices converting speech into languages that no human had ever heard before. Some were clicks and whistles. Others were deep rumbles that shook the floor. A few were colors projected onto screens for species that communicated with light. Commander Jake Morrison stood backstage and tried to calm his nerves. Through a gap in the curtain, he could see the audience. There were creatures with scales and fur, beings made of what looked like living metal, others that seemed to be floating clouds of gas contained in transparent suits. Every major civilization in the known galaxy had sent representatives to this meeting. A hand touched his shoulder. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood beside him. She was a tall woman with gray hair pulled back tight. Her uniform showed 30 years of service medals. Her eyes were sharp and missed nothing. "Nervous?" she asked quietly. Jake nodded. "There must be 5,000 aliens out there, and every single one of them thinks we are primitives." "Good," Hayes said with a slight smile. "Let them think that. You know what to do. Show them the ship. Tell them about the shields and the plasma cannons. Give them exactly what they expect to see. And the railgun? Not one word about the railgun. Let that be a surprise for later." Jake took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The lights were bright and hot. Behind him, a huge holographic display activated and showed the image of Earth's newest warship. The Frontier hung in virtual space, rotating slowly. Its hull was white and gray with running lights that blinked in patterns. It looked dangerous and beautiful at the same time. The crowd quieted as Jake reached the podium. He pressed a button and his microphone came to life. Instantly, his words were translated into the thousands of languages being used in the hall. "Honored delegates, thank you for being here today. My name is Commander Jake Morrison. I represent the United Earth Fleet. We are proud to present our newest contribution to galactic security. This is the Frontier." Polite applause followed his words. It was the kind of applause you give when someone shows you something nice but not impressive. Jake had expected this reaction. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 97 years. That was nothing compared to most species here. The Vrin Collective had been exploring space for over 10,000 years. The Keller Federation was nearly as old. Even the newest alien civilization here had been traveling between stars for at least 1,000 years. Jake began his presentation. He explained that the Frontier had taken 22 years to design and build. He showed diagrams of its shield generators. He talked about the plasma weapons mounted along its hull. He described the crew quarters and the life support systems. Everything he said was true and accurate. He just did not mention the ship's most important feature. In the front row of the auditorium sat Ambassador Claire Hudson of the Vrin Collective. She looked almost human except for 4 eyes instead of 2, and skin that had a faint blue tint. She wore robes that marked her as a high-ranking official. Next to her sat her aide, a younger Vrin named Tella. Claire leaned close to Tella and spoke in their native language. It sounded like music mixed with bird calls. "Look at how excited the human is about his ship." "It is almost adorable," Tella nodded. "Their plasma cannons are 3 generations behind ours. Their shields would fail in seconds against a Vrin destroyer." "Why did we even come to this presentation?" "Politics," Claire replied. "The humans are new and eager to please. If we show interest in their projects, they will feel valued. Then they will vote the way we want in the council meetings. Besides, their ship is not completely useless. It could patrol some of the quieter trade routes, free up our real warships for important duties." They both smiled. Around them, other ambassadors were having similar conversations. The consensus was clear. Earth had built a decent ship for beginners. Nothing special. Nothing that would change anything. Jake continued speaking. He showed more diagrams and statistics. The Frontier could reach faster than light speed in 3 minutes. It could operate for 6 months without resupply. It had torpedo tubes and point defense lasers, all standard equipment, all perfectly ordinary. What Jake did not show was the chamber deep in the ship's core, a space lined with electromagnetic coils powerful enough to accelerate a 3-ton projectile to nearly 1/3 the speed of light, a weapon that had taken humanity 15 years of secret research to perfect. A weapon that could punch through any shield technology the galaxy currently possessed. The Railgun. Admiral Hayes watched from the side of the stage. She had been in the military for most of her adult life. She had served on submarines, then on the first space cruisers, then on the exploration vessels that made first contact with alien civilizations. She had learned quickly that the galaxy operated on very old rules. The strong dominated, the weak served. Technology determined your place in the hierarchy. The Vrin were strong because they had better weapons than anyone else. The Keller were powerful because their shields could withstand massive damage. Smaller species survived by being useful to the big powers. It was a system that had existed for thousands of years. Humanity had arrived late to this system. The aliens had given Earth a place at the table, but it was not a seat of respect. Humans were tolerated, humored, treated like children who needed to be taught how things worked. Hayes had hated that from the first day. But she had also understood something important. The aliens expected humans to follow their path, to slowly improve plasma weapons and shield technology over centuries, until Earth was strong enough to matter. They never imagined humans might take a completely different approach. On stage, Jake was finishing his presentation. He showed images of the Frontier's crew, 200 men and women who had trained for years. He talked about Earth's commitment to peace and cooperation. He used all the right diplomatic phrases. The applause when he finished was barely louder than before. Most of the aliens were already standing up to leave. Some were talking on communication devices. Others were heading toward the doors where a reception was being held. Ambassador Krell of the Keller Federation met Claire in the aisle. He was tall and reptilian with scales that shimmered green and gold. His eyes were vertical slits that never seemed to blink. "What did you think?" Claire asked him. Krell made a gesture that meant dismissal in his culture. "The humans are trying. That counts for something, but their technology is decades behind the major powers. Maybe centuries. That ship would be destroyed in the first minute of any real battle. Should we offer them a place in the Border Patrol program? Why not? The disputed zone needs more ships. The pirates there are becoming bold. If the humans want to help, let them. At worst, they provide targets that distract from our real forces. At best, they might actually stop a few raiders." They walked together toward the reception area. Behind them, Jake was shaking hands with minor ambassadors from smaller species. Everyone was being polite. No one was being impressed. In a side corridor, Admiral Hayes met with Commander Jake. "Well done," she told him. "You gave them exactly what we wanted them to see." Jake looked frustrated. They barely paid attention. Half of them were checking messages during my presentation. "Do they really think we are that far behind?" "They think in terms of their own experience," Hayes explained. "Every species they have ever encountered followed the same pattern. Discover faster than light travel, copy alien technology, slowly improve over centuries. They cannot imagine that we might do something completely different." "And the railgun?" Hayes smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "The Frontier leaves for the disputed zone in 3 days. Chief Engineer Danny Porter has finished all final tests. The weapon is ready. And if the aliens find out we hid it from them, then they will learn an important lesson. Never underestimate humans just because we are new." Jake nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand the strategy. Let the aliens see what they expected. Let them make their judgments based on incomplete information. Then show them the truth when it mattered most. 3 levels below the conference hall, the Frontier sat in its assigned docking bay. Technicians moved around it performing final checks. Inside the ship, crew members were loading supplies and running system diagnostics. Everything looked normal and routine. But in a sealed chamber that required 3 levels of security clearance to enter, Danny Porter stood before humanity's greatest achievement. The railgun stretched the entire length of the ship's core. Electromagnetic coils wrapped around a launch tube that could hold a solid tungsten projectile. Power cables as thick as a man's leg fed energy into capacitors that could release enough electricity to power a small city. Danny was 50 years old and had spent half his life working on this weapon. He had started with the concept of old Earth railguns that could fire shells a few hundred miles. He had taken that idea and scaled it up beyond anything his ancestors could have imagined. This weapon could fire a projectile across distances measured in light seconds. It could strike with the force of a small nuclear weapon. And it could do it again and again without needing hours to recharge like energy weapons did. He ran his hand along one of the coils. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called within 48 hours. This had only happened 12 times in the past 1,000 years. Each time it meant something important had changed in the galaxy, something that required immediate attention from every civilized species. The Great Council chamber on Nexus Station was packed. Every seat was filled. Standing room in the back was occupied by junior diplomats and observers. The air vibrated with translated conversations in hundreds of languages. On every screen and holographic display, the same video played over and over. The Frontier destroying 18 pirate ships in less than 4 minutes. Ambassador Claire Hudson stood at the podium reserved for the Vryn Collective. Her 4 eyes watched the footage for what must have been the 100th time. Each viewing made her more angry. The humans had lied. They had hidden their true capabilities. They had made the Vrin look foolish. "Order," called High Counselor Ven. The Teresian leader was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species. His crystalline body glowed softly with inner light. His voice carried authority built over centuries of diplomatic service. "This council will come to order." The chamber quieted. All eyes turned to the central platform where the human delegation sat. Commander Jake Morrison stood at their podium looking calm. Behind him sat Admiral Lisa Hayes and several other Earth representatives. They did not look worried. They looked ready. Claire activated her microphone. Her voice was cold and controlled. "This council demands an explanation. 3 weeks ago, Commander Morrison presented the Frontier as a vessel equipped with standard plasma weapons. What we witnessed in the disputed zone was something entirely different. Something that was deliberately concealed from this body." Jake stood and walked to the speaking area. He moved slowly, giving himself time to think. He had prepared for this moment. Admiral Hayes had coached him on every possible question and challenge. But standing here with thousands of angry aliens staring at him was still intimidating. "Ambassador Hudson, we presented the Frontier exactly as it is, a warship designed to protect human interests and support galactic security. We described its defensive capabilities and its weapon systems. All of that information was accurate." "You did not mention this railgun," Claire said. The word sounded strange in her language. The translators struggled with the human term. "You did not explain that your ship could fire projectiles at relativistic speeds. You did not warn us that you possessed weapons capable of penetrating any known shield technology." Jake nodded. "That is correct. We did not mention those details. Because you did not ask for them. We are not required to reveal every technical specification of our military hardware to this council." Ambassador Krell of the Keller Federation rose from his seat. His scales rippled with agitation. "This is deception. This is a violation of the spirit of cooperation that this council was built upon. Every species shares information about their military capabilities, so that we can maintain balance, so that no one power can threaten the others." "With respect, Ambassador Krell, that is not true." Jake touched a control and a new holographic display appeared. It showed technical specifications of various alien warships. Most of the data fields were marked as classified or restricted. "The Vrin have never shared the full details of their shield harmonics. The Keller keep their plasma cannon focusing arrays secret. The Teresian Empire has never revealed how their faster-than-light engines achieve such high speeds. Every species in this room keeps military secrets. Why should humanity be different?" A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species were nodding in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Jake was right, and they all knew it. The major powers demanded transparency from smaller species while keeping their own advantages hidden. High Counselor Ven raised a hand for silence. "Commander Morrison, the concern is not merely about secrets. It is about the destabilizing effect of a revolutionary weapons technology. For millennia, this galaxy has maintained peace through mutual understanding of military capabilities. When one species gains a significant advantage, history shows us that conflict follows." Admiral Hayes stood and joined Jake at the podium. She was older and carried more authority. Her uniform showed decades of service ribbons. When she spoke, her voice was firm and clear. "Counselor Ven, with respect, the peace you describe is a myth. The disputed zone has been a war zone for generations. Pirates raid with impunity. Slavers steal entire populations. Border conflicts happen every few years between member species. The Council passes resolutions and nothing changes. That is not peace. That is controlled chaos maintained by powers who benefit from the status quo." Claire's eyes narrowed. "And what does Earth propose? That we allow you to patrol our space with your superweapons? That we trust newcomers who have proven they cannot be honest about their capabilities?" "We propose nothing," Hayes replied. "We built a weapon to defend our interest. We used that weapon to eliminate a pirate threat that this council has ignored for 30 years. We did exactly what you claim to want. We made the galaxy safer." "You made yourselves powerful," Krell said. "That is what this is truly about. Humanity wants to be feared. You want to sit at this council not as junior members but as equals to civilizations that have existed for thousands of years." Jake looked directly at the Keller ambassador. "Yes, we want to be equals. We want to be respected. Is that so wrong? Earth has contributed to galactic society. We have shared our art and our science. We have followed council laws. We have paid our dues and met our obligations. But we are still treated like children who need to be taught their place. The railgun is our way of saying that we will not accept that treatment anymore. The chamber erupted. Half the delegates were shouting support or opposition, translators overloaded trying to keep up with the flood of voices. High Counselor Venn had to call for order 3 times before the noise died down enough for him to speak. This council will take a recess while we consider this matter. Commander Morrison, Admiral Hayes, you will provide technical documentation on your railgun technology to the Council's Military Commission. This is a direct order from the High Council. Admiral Hayes shook her head. No, Counselor. That information is classified under Earth's sovereign right to maintain military secrets, the same right that every species in this chamber exercises. Venn's crystalline face darkened. It was a sign of deep anger in his species. You dare refuse a direct order from this council? Do you understand the consequences of such defiance? I understand perfectly, Hayes said. You want us to give up the one advantage we have. You want us to share our technology so that you can copy it and maintain your superiority. But Earth will not do that. If you want information about our weapons, we are willing to negotiate. Technology sharing agreements, trade deals, mutual defense pacts. We will discuss all of these things. But we will not simply hand over our innovations because you demand it. For several seconds, no one spoke. The chamber was completely silent. In the 1,000-year history of the Galactic Council, no species had ever openly defied a direct order from the High Counselor. The major powers had always gotten their way through a combination of diplomatic pressure and implied threats. But humanity was not backing down. Claire stood again. Her voice was dangerous and quiet. You are making a grave mistake. Earth is one small planet with a handful of colonies. You have 3 ships with these railguns, maybe a dozen more under construction. The Vrin Collective alone has over 5,000 warships. The Keller Federation has 3,000. Even the smallest military power in this room could overwhelm you with numbers. Your superweapon does not make you invincible. No, Admiral Hayes agreed, but it makes attacking us very expensive. How many of your 5,000 ships would you lose to destroy 3 of ours? 10, 20? 50. And what would your rivals do while you spent your military strength against us? Would the Keller sit quietly while the Vrin fleet was weakened? Would the Teresian Empire ignore the opportunity to expand their influence? Jake could see the calculation happening in Claire's eyes. She was thinking about the political and military reality. An attack on Earth would be costly. Even if the Vrin won, they would lose ships and prestige. Other powers would take advantage. The balance that had kept peace for so long would collapse. This council will reconvene in 3 days, High Counselor Venn announced. All member species are to consider their positions carefully. We stand at a crossroads. The decisions we make now will shape the galaxy for generations to come. The session ended and delegates began filing out. Jake noticed that several smaller species approached the human delegation. Ambassadors from the Trill, the Hexans, and the Morphid Combine all wanted to speak privately. They saw opportunity in Earth's defiance. As Jake and Admiral Hayes walked back to their quarters, they passed groups of aliens deep in conversation. The galaxy was dividing. Some saw humanity as a threat that needed to be contained. Others saw them as a counterweight to the domination of the major empires. Still others simply wanted access to the railgun technology for their own use. That went well, Jake said quietly. Hayes smiled. Better than expected. We have 3 days before they try again. 3 days to build alliances and strengthen our position. 6 months had passed since the Frontier destroyed the Scarlet Fang fleet. The galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. The disputed zone, once the most dangerous region in known space, was now patrolled by 3 human warships. Pirates avoided the area completely. Slavers went out of their way to stay clear of human vessels. The trade routes that passed through the sector were safer than they had been in generations, but safety came with a price. Every major empire in the galaxy was racing to understand and copy the railgun technology. In research facilities on 100 worlds, scientists worked day and night trying to recreate what humanity had built. On the Keller homeworld, a planet called Thrace that orbited a red giant star, General Thoth stood in a massive testing facility. The room was 500 meters long and lined with equipment that hummed with power. At one end sat a prototype railgun built from stolen plans and educated guesses. Fire when ready, Thoth commanded. Engineers activated the weapon. Capacitors charged with a rising whine. Electromagnetic coils energized in sequence. A projectile launched from the barrel and streaked toward a target at the far end of the chamber. It hit with impressive force, punching through several layers of armor plating. Thos examined the results on a data screen. His reptilian face showed disappointment. What was the projectile velocity? 5% of light speed, General, replied the lead scientist, a young Keller named Vess. We have increased it from 3% last month. The humans achieved 30%, Thos hissed. After 6 months of work, we are still 6 times slower. Why? Vess looked uncomfortable. General, the issue is power density. To reach the speeds the humans achieve, we need capacitors that can store and release enormous amounts of energy in microseconds. Our current technology cannot produce such components. We estimate it will take 3 to 5 years to develop the necessary materials. Thos slammed his fist on a console. Unacceptable. The Vryn are making faster progress. Their spies have obtained better information than ours. If they develop a working railgun before we do, the balance of power shifts in their favor. This same conversation was happening across the galaxy. The Vryn had their own research program. So did the Teresian Empire. Even smaller species were trying to understand the basic principles. But all of them faced the same problem. The railgun required technology that no one except humans had perfected, material science that could handle the enormous stresses, power systems that could deliver energy at the required rates, targeting computers fast enough to calculate trajectories for projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Humanity had spent 15 years in secret developing these supporting technologies. The other species were trying to catch up in months. It was not working. On Earth, in the secure facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Admiral Lisa Hayes met with President Linda Torres. The president looked tired. Leading humanity through this crisis was taking its toll. Every day brought new challenges and new threats. Give me the status report, Torres said. Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing human-controlled space. We now have 6 ships equipped with railguns. The Frontier, Pioneer, and Horizon are operational and on patrol. The Challenger, Discovery, and Endeavour finished their trials last week and are being deployed to defensive positions around Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. 6 ships, Torres said, against thousands of alien warships. 6 ships that can engage at ranges the aliens cannot match. Madam President, conventional military thinking is based on numbers and firepower. But the railgun changes that calculation. One of our ships can engage an enemy fleet before they get close enough to return fire. We can destroy their lead vessels and force the rest to retreat or take casualties. Torres nodded slowly. And if they decide the losses are acceptable, if they simply overwhelm us with numbers, then we make sure the cost is too high. Intelligence reports that the Vryn are considering a military strike, not against Earth directly, but against our installations in the disputed zone. They want to test our resolve without triggering a full-scale war. How soon? Days, maybe weeks. They are positioning forces and watching for an opportunity. Torres stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the ocean stretching to the horizon. Somewhere beneath those waves sat enough firepower to defend a planet. But would it be enough to defend against an empire that had ruled space for 10,000 years? What do our allies say? She asked. Hayes smiled slightly. We have allies now. The Trill Confederation has signed a mutual defense pact. So have the Hexans and the Morphid Combine. 3 dozen smaller species have reached out with trade agreements and diplomatic overtures. They see us as a counterweight to the major empires. Or they see us as useful idiots who will fight their battles for them. Perhaps. But their support matters. If the Vryn attack us, they risk pushing more species into our camp. The political cost might be higher than the military benefit. In the Vryn capital city, a place called Thessera on a world that humans had never visited, Claire Hudson met with the collective's ruling council. The room was elegant and ancient. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft light. The council members sat in elevated seats arranged in a circle. War Master Trell spoke first. His voice echoed in the chamber. The humans continue to expand their fleet. Every month they launch new ships. If we wait too long, they will become too strong to challenge. And if we attack too soon, we unite the galaxy against us, Claire countered. Already the smaller species whisper about forming a coalition. They see Earth as their champion against our dominance. Then we must not attack Earth directly, said Elder Voss, the oldest member of the council. We must create a situation where the humans appear to be the aggressors, where they fire first and we respond in self-defense. A false flag operation, Claire said. You want us to provoke them into shooting at our ships, then claim they attacked without cause. Exactly. We send a fleet into the disputed zone. We operate near human patrol routes. We make aggressive maneuvers but do not fire. If the humans show restraint, we continue to pressure them until their nerve breaks. If they fire on us, we have our justification. Claire considered this carefully. It was risky. The humans had shown they were not afraid to use their weapons. But they had also shown a preference for following rules and protocols. If the Vrin could create ambiguity, make the situation murky enough that blame could be assigned to either side, they might succeed. How many ships? She asked. 15, Trell replied. Enough to appear threatening, but not so many that it looks like an invasion force. We will call it a navigation error, a simple mistake that put us in the wrong sector. The same excuse we used at Sol System 6 months ago. The humans will not believe it twice. It does not matter if they believe it. It only matters that we create doubt. Some species will side with us. Others will demand an investigation. The Council will debate for months while we do what needs to be done. In the engineering bay of the newest human warship, the Challenger Chief Engineer Danny Porter supervised the final calibration of the ship's railgun. This was the 4th generation of the weapon. Each version was an improvement over the last. This one could fire faster and hit harder. It had better targeting systems and more efficient power consumption. But Danny was not satisfied. He stood in front of a holographic display showing designs for the next generation. Smaller railguns that could be mounted on fighters. Defensive platforms that could protect entire planets. Weapons that could fire multiple projectiles in rapid sequence. His assistant, a young engineer named Lucy Carter, looked at the designs with concern. Danny, are we building too many weapons? Every month it is something new. Something more powerful. Where does it end? Danny was quiet for a moment. It ends when the galaxy accepts that humanity is here to stay. When they stop seeing us as upstarts who need to be controlled. When we have enough strength that no one dares to test us. And how much strength is enough, I do not know. But I know that if we stop building, if we decide we have enough and let our guard down, someone will take advantage. The universe respects strength. Everything else is just words. Lucy nodded, but she looked troubled. She was young enough to remember a time before faster-than-light travel, before first contact with aliens. She remembered when humanity's biggest concern was climate change and political divisions on Earth itself. Now they were building weapons to fight wars among the stars. The change had happened so fast on Nexus Station. Ambassador Jake Morrison received a coded message from Earth. It was marked urgent and came directly from Admiral Hayes. He read it twice to make sure he understood. The Vrin were moving ships toward the disputed zone. Intelligence suggested they were planning another provocation. Earth Command was ordering all human vessels to maintain position, but to avoid firing unless directly attacked. The goal was to prevent giving the Vrin any excuse for escalation. Jake deleted the message and sat back in his chair. He looked out the window at the alien ships docked around the station. How many of them belonged to species that were plotting against Earth? How many were potential friends waiting to see which way the wind blew? Politics among the stars was no different than politics on Earth. Everyone had their own interests. Everyone was looking for advantage. The message from Earth Command arrived 30 minutes after Captain Greg Matthews sent his request. Admiral Lisa Hayes' voice was calm but firm through the audio channel. Captain Matthews, you are authorized to defend your position. Do not fire unless fired upon. Do not retreat unless the situation becomes untenable. We are sending the Pioneer and Horizon to your location. They will arrive in 6 hours. Hold your ground. Greg acknowledged the order and closed the channel. 6 hours. The Vrin fleet would arrive in 4. That meant the Frontier would be alone against 15 enemy warships for at least 2 hours. Maybe longer if the Vrin delayed their approach. Battle stations, Greg ordered. All hands prepare for possible combat. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, crew members moved to their positions. In engineering, Danny Porter stood before the railgun and ran final system checks. In the medical bay, doctors prepared emergency equipment. In the armory, security teams loaded weapons in case of boarding attempts. Everyone knew what was at stake. On the bridge, Lieutenant Amy Foster tracked the approaching Vrin fleet on her tactical display. Captain, they are maintaining formation. Speed is constant. They will enter weapons range in 3 hours and 40 minutes. Greg nodded. He opened a communication channel and broadcast on all standard frequencies. Vrin vessels, this is Captain Greg Matthews of the Earthship Frontier. You are approaching the boundary of our patrol zone in the disputed zone. Please state your intentions and alter course to avoid any misunderstandings. The response came quickly. Claire Hudson's face appeared on the main screen. She looked composed and almost friendly. Captain Matthews, this is High Commander Claire Hudson of the Vrin Collective. We are conducting routine fleet exercises in this sector. Our navigation systems indicate we are in neutral space. We have every right to be here. Commander Hudson, with respect, you are moving directly toward our patrol route. This appears intentional, not accidental. Appearances can be deceiving, Captain. I assure you we mean no harm. We are simply exercising our rights under galactic law. Surely Earth respects the freedom of navigation. Greg felt the trap closing. If he ordered the Vrin to leave, he would appear aggressive. If he did nothing, they would continue to advance until they were right on top of him. Either way, the situation would escalate. Commander, I am requesting that you alter course by at least 30 degrees to avoid our patrol zone. This will prevent any accidental confrontation. Claire smiled. It was not a warm smile. We will take your request under consideration, Captain. For now, we will continue on our current heading. Hudson out, the screen went dark. Greg looked at his crew. They all understood what was happening. This was a test. The Vrin wanted to see if humanity would back down or fight. They wanted to create a situation where they could claim the humans were the aggressors. On Earth, in the Atlantic Command Center, Admiral Hayes watched the same tactical display that Greg was seeing. President Linda Torres stood beside her along with the Joint Chiefs and several key advisors. The room was tense and quiet. They are going to force a confrontation, Torres said. They want Greg to shoot first so they can claim self-defense. Or they want him to run so they can claim we are cowards, Hayes replied. Either outcome serves their purpose. If we fight, they have justification for a larger conflict. If we retreat, they prove that our weapons do not make us brave. General Chris Bailey leaned forward. What if we send more ships now? Show them we are serious about defending this position. The nearest ship is 4 hours away, Hayes said. We can accelerate their arrival, but not by much. And sending more ships might be seen as escalation. We could trigger exactly the war we are trying to avoid. Torres was quiet for a moment. She thought about the 70,000 colonists on Titan, the millions of people living on Mars and the orbital stations, the billions on Earth who were depending on her to make the right decision. Admiral, what does your instinct tell you? Hayes looked at the tactical display. 3 human ships total, 6 if you counted the ones still being fitted out at shipyards, against thousands of alien warships spread across the galaxy. The math seemed impossible, but math was not everything. My instinct says we hold our ground. We show them that humanity does not bluff. The railgun gave us an advantage, but advantages mean nothing if we are too afraid to defend our territory. Even if it means losing the frontier, even then, because if we back down now, we will back down forever. The galaxy will know that we can be pushed, and once they know that, our weapons become irrelevant. Back on the frontier, Greg watched the Vrin fleet continue its approach. 3 hours now. The ships were close enough that he could see them visually. 15 heavy cruisers in tight formation. Their hulls were dark blue and covered with weapon ports. They looked deadly and ancient, designed by a civilization that had been building warships for millennia. Kate, Greg said quietly, do you have firing solutions on all 15 targets? Lieutenant Kate Morgan checked her console. Yes, sir. Targets are locked. The railgun is charged and ready. I can fire on your command. Hold fire. We do not shoot unless they shoot first. 2 hours passed with agonizing slowness. The Vrin fleet continued to advance. Claire Hudson sent several more messages, each one polite but firm. She insisted they were in neutral space. She claimed they had every right to be there. She wondered why the humans were so nervous about a simple fleet exercise. Greg responded each time with the same message. Alter course. Avoid confrontation. Respect our patrol zone. His words were diplomatic, but his meaning was clear. Come closer, and we will fire. With 1 hour remaining until the Vrin reached their position, Paul Jensen spoke up from communications. Captain, I am receiving a message from the Pioneer. They have increased speed and will arrive in 90 minutes instead of 2 hours. The horizon is also accelerating. Greg felt slight relief. 90 minutes meant facing the Vrin alone for only 30 minutes. He could manage that. He hoped. The Vrin fleet crossed into the patrol zone. Greg had drawn an invisible line in space and they had crossed it. Now the question was what to do about it. He opened a channel again. Commander Hudson, you have entered our patrol zone without authorization. This is a violation of the agreements established 6 months ago. Turn back now or we will consider your presence a hostile act. Claire's face appeared on screen again. This time she was not smiling. Captain Matthews, you have no authority to order Vryn vessels anywhere. This is neutral space recognized by the Galactic Council. Your claims of a patrol zone are meaningless. We will continue on our course. Then you force me to defend this position, Greg said. Are you threatening to fire on collective warships? That would be an act of war. I wonder if your superiors on Earth have authorized such extreme action. Greg knew she was bluffing. She had no way of knowing what orders he had received. But she was right that firing would mean war. Everything that had been building for 6 months would explode into open conflict. Thousands or millions might die, and it would be because he gave the order to shoot. But if he did not give that order, everything Admiral Hayes had said would come true. Humanity would be seen as weak. The railgun would be proven worthless if humans were too afraid to use it, and the Vryn would know they could push as hard as they wanted. Weapons range in 5 minutes, Amy said quietly. Greg made his decision. Kate, prepare to fire. Target their lead ships. On my command. Aye, sir. Targeting solutions locked. Ready to fire. The Vryn fleet was close now. Less than 100,000 kilometers. At that distance, their plasma weapons could reach the frontier. But the frontier's railgun could reach them first. The question was who would fire first. Claire sent one more message. Last chance, Captain. Withdraw and there will be no consequences. Stay and you start a war that Earth cannot win. Greg looked at his crew, young men and women who trusted him, who had followed him across the galaxy to this moment. He thought about all the people on Earth who were watching, who were depending on him to do the right thing. Commander Hudson, you have 30 seconds to alter course. After that, I will interpret your presence as hostile and respond accordingly. He counted down silently. 30, 29, 28. The bridge was completely silent. Everyone was holding their breath. The Vryn ships continued to advance. Their weapon ports began to glow, charging energy for firing. 10, 9, 8. Greg's hand hovered over the firing control. One press and the railgun would speak. One press and everything would change. 3, 2, 1. Fire, Greg said. Kate pressed the firing control. The railgun activated with its now familiar pattern. Capacitors discharged, coils energized. The projectile launched at 1/3 light speed. The lead Vryn ship exploded 3 seconds later. The kinetic impact was devastating. The ship did not even have time to raise full shields. It simply came apart, its hull vaporizing along the impact path. Second target, Kate said. Firing. Another Vryn ship died. Then another. The remaining 12 vessels scattered in panic, breaking formation. Some tried to return fire, but their plasma weapons fell short as the frontier maneuvered away. Others attempted to close the distance, but Kate tracked them all and the railgun fired again and again. In the command center on Earth, everyone watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded.